What's up and welcome to the Level Health Podcast. Today, Josh is interviewing Astrid Naranjo. Astrid is a clinical registered dietitian and nutrition coach for Team Biolayne. If you've seen any of her content, you probably already know what we're talking about today, squashing nutrition myths and misconceptions, which is something that Astrid does better than almost anyone. We cover a lot in this episode, including how to find your reason for dieting, what anti-diet means to her, how to adjust your mindset in order to set yourself up for success, and focusing on the long term. Big thanks to Astrid for coming on the show. You can follow her on Instagram at antidiet_dietitian. You can also visit her website, astrid-dietitian.com. We'll have both of those linked in the description below. For those of you that don't already know, our website, Level Health, is a directory, community, and network of qualified personal trainers. We want to help create a space where clients are able to find the right trainer for them. We have accounts for both clients and fitness professionals. Client accounts are always free, where you'll get access to our trainer directory and other resources. Our basic pro option is now available for trainers, and our verified pro membership will be available early next year. If you haven't signed up already, head over to levelhealth.net and set up your membership. Thanks for listening, and if you have a second, we would love it if you gave us a rating and review so that our podcast and the professionals we interview can get some more exposure. You can also subscribe so you don't miss any of our new content. Thanks, and we hope you enjoy the episode.
So, Astrid, you have developed quite a reputation in this space for squashing there's a lot of them, but some of the myths and misconceptions around what it takes to, just generally improve your fitness, the mindset around nutrition and fitness, just really everything that people need to be able to make progress in their life in these areas. And I really wanted to get started asking questions because I don't want to waste any time. But before we get rolling, I have just one that I ask everybody to start out with. Can you tell us just a bit about who you are and why you do what you do?
Well, it is a long story, but basically, if I try to make it short, I grew up in South America. So I was born in South America, basically spent most of my childhood and adult life over there. And 8 years ago, I moved to Australia. And here I did my master's degree. I completed my bachelor's degree back home, but here I did my master's degree. And since I graduated from my master's degree, I did a couple of internships in different hospital settings. And then basically started working in a hospital, in a private hospital part-time, doing mostly rehab, nutrition, mental health, and clinical nutrition, clinical dietetics. And around that, basically, I do other things. So I have quite a few hats. Talking about that is basically adding that social media aspect I've developed over time. I've been working on that over the years and just being consistent with that. And in addition to that, I've been doing nutrition coaching. So I've been pretty much, even before I came to Australia, I was a nutrition coach. I was doing that since even before I graduated from my university, from my bachelor's degree, I was already doing nutrition consultations. But I guess it has evolved over time, and the things you learn as a professional and all the experience you get over time with more clients and different experiences, you get a much better approach and you get much more confidence with the things you do with each and different situations. So that's basically what I've gone to. And currently I'm a dietitian and nutrition coach for Team Biolayne. So I work with Lane Norton and Holly Baxter and all the team. And in addition to that, I kind of do a little bit of everything. So that's what I am doing so far. And yeah, I think I'm very proud to say I'm happy with the things I do. And I am in love with the things I do. So it makes things so much easier when it comes to just wake up and show up every day and knowing that whatever you're doing, you're helping people, you're changing lives, and you growing as other people grow with you. So it is very, I think I'm very happy with the things are around my professional development and my personal growth along with that.
Yeah, I heard a little bit of your background. I heard you talking on another podcast, so I won't ask too many questions there because I'm sure you're tired of telling that story. But I had one personally kind of selfish question I wanted to ask just because I'm curious, and then I had something more general. The first question was, what is the education like in Venezuela versus Australia? Is it pretty similar? I think my limit of understanding of the education system stops at the United States, so I'm curious.
Well, the difference is not that large. There were two big differences. Like my bachelor's degree was in a public university. The big difference in there is like potentially you could say that a public university over there is free. So 5 years, I pretty much spent very, very little in like my tuition fees and things like that. Most of the money I spent on like buying actual books that I had to get for my like each subject. You'd have like a very important book that you needed to get. Like for biochemistry, I got the Leninger and the Marx, and for like physiology, I got like the Harrison. So you had specific books, like they were the Bible, so they were very expensive. But basically, most of the money you would spend it in that, but you wouldn't have that like tuition fee. Versus like here in Australia, I did my master's degree. Apart that it was a master's, it was a private university. So the private university was like completely like you have to buy. It's a lot of money. It's kind of like the initial for a house.
Yes. Yeah, I count
Yeah.
myself very lucky because I was in the military, so I don't pay for school. I'm working on a biology degree right now, and I see how much those books are and everything. I feel for people. So it shows that you really value your education. So you have a clinical background, you have a coaching background, and you have, from what I hear, quite a long fitness background. That leads me to this first. So people probably know you as the Antidiet dietitian. So obviously you came to that name for a reason. I wanted to hear what does that actually mean to you? What does anti-diet dietitian mean to you?
I know it makes it a little bit confusing because the anti-diet is an anti-diet movement that is very popular nowadays with the HACE movement and like non-diet approach. And I think there is a little bit of a component to it, as I don't like the word just crash dieting, but I just added that additional word as an explanatory way to say, I don't want people to just diet without any reason, or just jump on any trendy diet that they have seen in the internet, or they've read, or they have heard from a friend. Just because you have to explore what your needs are, what your preferences are, and try to find ways that you can do something that you can stick to for the long term. And that's why sort of the mindset of anti-diet comes into the game. It's not like I'm against people trying to lose weight, or I'm against like the fact that if you want or need to get into a diet to lose body fat or a calorie deficit, I'm going to be against that. Like, it is not about that concept that I'm against. It's more about the mindset you approach a diet and how, like, why are you doing this in the first place? Because if your whys are not strong enough, if there is not like a big reason why you want to do this, like a deeper reason apart from just looking better in the mirror, we all want to look good, but that is not a sustainable, potentially, for the most part, it is not enough reason to make a change. And if you're only doing it for the sole purpose of looking better in the mirror, you might want to just speed up the things just to good look as fast as you can. And that is going to lead to like behaviors that are not going to be sustainable on the long run. So when we're trying to make things for the long run and sustainable, we want to find an approach that you can see yourself in the next doing the same things over the next 10 years or next 2 decades. So you can picture yourself doing this for the long run. And at the same time, it feels like you can sustain that over the days. Every day, you can repeat the same actions and learn skills, mindset, and behaviors that will help you to maintain that sort of, that momentum, and prevent that bouncing, like, oh, well, I finished my diet, now it's time to party. And then things go completely out of the window. And then that's why we see a lot of weight regain, because there's that lack of mindset that, like, you're doing a diet, it has a start, it has an end, you suffer, you crush it, you do the as fast as you can. And then because you didn't learn anything in the process, you were so rushed to lose all the weight. There are going to be metabolic adaptations, psychological consequences as well. And there is going to be quite a few things that are going to affect the way you're going to end up that diet, that is going to pretty much set you for failure. Yeah. So I guess in summary, the way that I want to utilize that word is more as, don't diet just for the sake of rushing it and getting as fast as possible to your destination. Find something that you can adhere to, that you see yourself doing for a long period of time, and that doesn't feel like it is being taken, someone is taking something away from you. It's more your choice, but make sure, like, we can make poor choices. So if we make choices, make sure the choices we're making are agreeable with what we want to see ourselves doing in the next few years. And it is fair enough to say that if there's something that you want to try, you can try. Like, if there's perhaps something that you might think it might work for you, but you're not too sure about it, it is fair to give that a go. Like, if you're someone who's been doing, like, for a long time, just a normal crazy eating, and you've been eating fast foods and you have a poor lifestyle, and suddenly someone comes to you and say, well, let's try keto, or let's try intermittent fasting. And it might sound sometimes like a fad diet, but if it's for that person that aligns with their beliefs, their core lifestyle changes, and it's sustainable for them, and they can actually adhere to it and lose weight and have a much healthier and better lifestyle, great. So I'm not against, even like, if you do keto or you do plant-based or you're vegan, like, I'm not against like a specific diet. I'm more against the mindset of, like, I'm just doing it because my friend told me to do it, because it is the best approach. And there is no best approach when it comes to fat loss. We want to really nail it in the sense that whatever you can do to stick to a calorie deficit for a period of time, and it is sustainable, and you can still feel like it was your choice. No one told you not to eat some certain things, or you have this sort of black and white mindset, or this is good, this is bad, like just no morality around food, then that's a good way to sort of approach any dietary changes or any dietary lifestyle you want to start implementing into your life.
That was explained excellently, because I'm sure that people ask you that question a lot, but I mean, by definition, a diet isn't meant to be a long-term thing. So I completely see where you're coming from on that front. And I've always thought that, like you said, it's okay to try these diets and see if they work for you, or parts of them work for you. I've always thought that it's good to try a diet, find what works, like what little bit of that, it may be only one thing, and then keep that, and move on, and really just over time develop an approach that's really customized to you. And I think that adhering or trying to adhere, hopefully, like to keto, for instance, that can teach you a lot of things. And like you said, if they have a horrible diet to begin with, what they may benefit from that is simply having some sort of structure that they learn from there. So there's absolutely, again, like I'm sure people have asked you this a lot, there's nothing wrong with diets inherently, but they're being misapplied, I think. And yeah, I mean, people may first glance see your profile name and be like, oh, you know, and have some assumptions. However, if they look at your content, it's pretty clear that you go much deeper than that, and you explain things on a much deeper level. So I don't think that anybody has like any misconceptions if they do any kind of due diligence and look at your profile. But I just wanted to kind of talk about that because it's interesting. It's definitely, at the very least, it's provoking and it brings people to your profile. And if that gets them to see your good information, then I think it's a win for sure.
I get a lot of backlash, and sometimes when I post things about calorie deficit or refeeds or diet breaks, sustainable fat loss, or whatever has fat loss or calorie deficit in some of the caption or in the actual post, I get people saying, where is that anti-diet there? Like people coming saying, you're not from the anti-diet movement. Why are you saying or proclaiming yourself as an anti-diet dietitian if you're actually promoting diets? Like I am not. Is that you don't really know what I'm trying to convey with my message. It's not just about one post. It is about my full content. And if you dig deeper into what I am and what I say and what my message is, it is much deeper than just don't diet. It goes way beyond that, because when we think about the human behaviors and the human, the human mindset, it just goes way beyond just black or white. And there is so much nuance around the decisions we make and the evidence base around diets and nutrition. Like there's so much things out there that we need to have a much more open mind approach to everything. Like it is no black or white. Like if you diet, you're doing things wrong. If you're not diet, you're doing things wrong. So who has the right answer for this? And that's why I think we need to be very open-minded and try to stay in the middle. Like the people who are more neutral and more in the middle can see the things in the spectrum, and people are going to fit in the spectrum, and we want to try to sort of convey them always in the middle so people are not into extremes, because that's when we see issues, when people go completely into one extreme or the other, and then blaming that the other extreme is bad and their side is the only truth and the only way to do things. So I think it is important to try to convey and stay in the middle. Like I like the song of,
really, I mean, there really is nothing but nuance in this field. Like that's really what leads to a lot of these myths and problems and manipulation that occurs. So, I mean, you've kind of made a name for yourself doing this. Can you, or not creating these myths, but squashing these myths, can you just point out, in your opinion, what are some of the biggest and most, I want to add, most destructive myths out there? Because there are some really pervasive myths that aren't necessarily too harmful, but we should probably start with the ones that are most problematic.
There's so many. I could spend a whole day just trying to, like, I'm trying to write, like, not now, but I've been thinking of actually sitting down and writing a list of all the myths that I want to, I've already tackled, but like in much more deeper way, and like the scientific way to sort of tackle these misconceptions. But like there is a lot of nuances around like how you approach a diet. And like the diet has no like a beginning and an end. It is more about how you approach it in a way that is going to be sustainable. There are lots of different issues around like blaming foods as good or bad, or like energy balance. Like people like, oh, well, it is only my hormones and calories don't count, or like the calories are not calories, and like not all calories are equal. There are a lot of different nuances, and I understand that there is some truth or partly truth behind stating those things, but it is not put in the right context. And at the same time, if there is no adequate information and there is not a completely evidence-based, you can sort of tweak it to your own benefit. Like people that are saying keto is the only way, they blaming the insulin and carbohydrates, that they are bad, they are the cause of the obesity. On the other hand, we have carnivores, which are they're saying like fiber is bad, vegetables are your enemy, they don't want you to eat them, and that is the cause of all the allergies and intolerances, so you have to completely avoid vegetables and fruit. So it's like there is so extreme thinking about certain things that there is like it's either this or that, but there is nothing to meet in the middle, as I mentioned before. So like same with the protein, like a lot of people saying like high protein diet is going to damage your kidney if you go beyond certain number, or if you eat very high protein, that eating more protein makes you like it is bad for longevity. But the studies are like basically based on animals and like flies and things that are not necessarily as complex as the human body. So obviously you can't just extrapolate something that's a very simple system like flies to the human systems and everything that is about the human nature. So there I could spend hours to talk about like even why you can't eat carbohydrate after 6 p.m. or like things like that. We hear this all the time. Or even trying to bring up certain myths like, like apple cider vinegar or lemon water, the way to lose body fat because they melt your body fat. It's like, so I don't know. I think there can be ones that they get very popularized, but they are not necessarily like, if you eat them, it's not like they're very harmful. Like if you drink lemon water, that's not there's no risk for your health, but it's like the belief or like the misconception that something is going to be the miracle to solve the obesity problem, which is not the right way to approach it. When we actually dig deeper, it's more the combination of the human behavior, the mindset, the habits, the lifestyle, plus obviously dietary choices. But on top of that, we have that stress management and emotional eating that seems to be an issue that people don't address for the most part, and is a very important issue that leads to distracted eating or unintentional emotional eating, binge eating, things like that. So sometimes like even understanding and learning to redirect your behaviors from, and trying to understand that sometimes it is not really hunger the issue, it's more something else, but we're trying to canalize and use food as our coping mechanism or as a way to feel better, soothe the uncomfortable feelings we have with something that tastes good and feels rewarding. Then we start understanding that there can be something we need to tackle there in terms of like, how do we see food and why we're utilizing certain things as a way to escape from something else. So I guess it is very simple said, but it has a lot of deep thoughts into it that I could spend hours talking about too. But I guess my main misconceptions are kind of the biggest ones that I just said.
Yeah, and like you said, we could talk for a long time on that, and context really is everything. For instance, with that protein thing that you were talking about, yes, I mean, theoretically, like you said, they have some mechanistic data that shows that higher protein diets may increase cancer risk long term. But also, you know, I'm a little bit concerned about sarcopenia too. So like, I'm not going to starve myself with protein so as to avoid that potential risk and then fall and break my hip when I'm 60 and then just be done anyway. So I think what we can do to summarize that is just anybody that wants some myths and misconceptions squashed for them, just head over to your profile so they can see those on a daily basis. All right, moving on to the next question. And this is probably going to be a little bit more practical for people anyways. What are some common obstacles that you see holding clients back from achieving their goals? And then I think it would also be appropriate for us to touch on what are the root causes of those obstacles?
Well, one of the things I do see a lot, especially with my clients, is lack of consistency and the mindset of that all or nothing. Like if you messed up one day, it's all over and you screw up, like, fuck it, I am a failure. So it's like being very hard on yourself, lack of compassion and lack of like self-awareness. I think these are very powerful obstacles that I see all the time. And that lack of consistency, which seems to be something so common when you start looking at someone that says, I've been in a calorie deficit for 2 weeks and I haven't lost weight. Well, just only spend 2 weeks. That is, you have to give more time. Like, so lack of patience is another issue. Like you want to see things and results tomorrow. And you have to understand that that's what leads in the first place to crash dieting and want to do things, take shortcuts and do things the wrong way. And that's why you fail. So if you've been repeating the same pattern for so many years, especially we're talking about a chronic dieter, we want to change the game completely. And you have to change your mindset in terms of how you approach your diet next time. And you gotta be patient, develop skills to see this long term, and there can be ways to go around achieving results that at least build some momentum. Like rapid fat loss is not a bad thing. It just needs to be applied in the right context with the right strategies, right periodization. So you can implement certain periods where you can lose weight faster, but you're mitigating some metabolic adaptation along the way. So you're not chronically losing or implementing a very deep calorie deficit for too long. So you can't implement every single tool you have in the toolbox, from aggressive dieting to gentle nutrition to whatever it means to that person that is going to help them. But it has to be very well thought, and you have to dig deeper into who is this person, how is that person going to benefit, considering not just the aspect of their nutrition, but again, is looking at the full human being, the person. What is their background? How is the relationship with food? How is the relationship with the body? What are their goals? What is been happening in their past? Do they have issues with like trauma or issues with like their siblings or relationships that little things like that could affect adherence, consistency, and whatever approach you're going to utilize. I have had clients that they had trauma in the past, and that's why they always struggle to be consistent or just binge eating, emotional eating, because they were using something that was very deep into their hearts as a way to sort of escape from that feeling that was food the solution for them. According to them, that was the solution, but it wasn't. So digging deeper into the emotions, I guess that's why I think coaches, or like myself, I say like I do more psychology than actual nutrition, like building meal plans and things like that. It is just a tiny bit of what I do. But like 70% of what I do is a lot of mindsets and a lot of like behavioral work and like reassuring the client. And like it's things that you don't learn at university. Like you don't learn at university. Like you studied for dietetics, but you actually, your role as a role model, as someone who is trying to help other people, when you actually start working with actual clients on a day-to-day basis, you realize that a big component of your role is more that mindset and that psychology, especially when we think about nutrition. Like nutrition and food has such a wide array of components that affect the way we eat, how we eat, why we eat, how much we eat, the frequency we eat. All of those things are affected by our mindset behaviors. It is not just, oh, I'm hungry, I'm eating. Like, we're not robots, or like animals are much simpler because they just by nature will have a routine and they create a habit, and they are not emotional about food. They are not affected by stress, eating, or trauma. Or like, it's so much simpler to just talk about animals, but human beings are so complex, and we are surrounded by something that are emotions, and emotions are a big component as well that drives our eating behaviors. Plus our hormonal and chemical and at the neurochemical level as well, like so many things that are happening with at the level of like neurotransmitters, our brains, the way we see like all the hormonal milieu that it goes driven by the hypothalamus. Like, it's so much complex. I can't explain that there is just one way to go about nutrition. So if you're, as a nutrition coach, you're seeing a client that basic, you're going to fail as a coach, because one person is completely different to another. So you can't just like make the one meal plan for everyone, or just like feel like one fits all. Everyone is so different that they will change in the smallest thing. You find differences. So that's why it is important to try to connect with each person differently, and try to find out what are the motivators, what are the barriers, what are the things that have prevented them from achieving their own goals. And that's when you find that there is so much more room for potential growth, and digging deeper into how can I best help this person by looking at the barriers and the motivators, the things they need to achieve, and the things that they've tried before, they never worked, and why it didn't work.
Yeah, you said the one size fits all approach. If you're applying that as a nutrition coach, you're just kind of screwed to start out with. You're not going to, because you're trying to apply one thing to everybody, and that just doesn't work. And I see everything from a personal training background, because that was my profession. And that same thing applies. If you're looking at everybody exactly the same with this framework that you apply to everybody, and you don't customize it at all, that's a problem, definitely. You said 70, what you do is 70% mindset, basically. And obviously that's kind of an arbitrary number, but that really kind of mirrors what we've seen from or heard from other coaches and even dietitians that we've had on, all types of health and fitness professionals. Like the conversation always ends up going back to this mindset, because like if you're not addressing the psychological, the behavioral aspects of it, you're really just not going to make much, if any, progress with a large percentage of people. You'll get some progress with some people. I'm sure that you could attest to that. Like, just people do get results with people, even though they're not applying a more comprehensive approach, but it's more rare than if you're thinking about the human holistically, everything about that person, because it all matters for sure.
Correct.
So we have talked about quite a lot of stuff, but I wanted to ask two more questions here. How has your approach, personally, how has your approach to working with clients changed over time? I'm sure that you didn't start out where you are now. I'm sure there's been a lot of shifts, and you talked about a lot of it was you growing in your personal life as well. So I wanted to hear, what are some specifics, like you look back, something that you would like to change?
Well, the things I kind of mentioned at the beginning is that I've evolved over time. Like, I've been doing nutrition coaching at least for 10 years, like from when I graduated at 2017. So since then, no, 2012. So when I graduated 2012 until now, it's been like, 10, almost 11 years since I graduated. And even before that, before I graduated, I was starting to do like nutrition consultations and things like that. So I think it has completely changed the way I do things, because when I started my nutrition dietetics bachelor's, my only thought was, I want to learn how to make a meal plan. And I just thought that people would just do what you ask them to do and follow a plan, but they don't do any of that. Like, people don't follow meal plans for the most part. There are, as you said, there are people that are more robotic. You tell them what to do, they will do it without asking why you're saying this or that, or why are you putting these foods in this order, or why are you choosing that specific food. So like, there will be people that will adhere to something as simple as a meal plan. But for the majority of people, it's completely the opposite, unless you give them much more flexibility or much more structure. Or sometimes you'll have people that they just have that independence of having the freedom to do whatever they want, as long as you give them the most basic information on their macros. So just tell me my macros and I work around how to meet them appropriately. And then that's kind of the basics that I thought it was like the only thing you needed to do. And obviously, as I've been working with different clients, it's more about, like, also I thought that you have to be very prescriptive and like tell them what to do. And this is the way you do things, because I think this is the right way to go about it. Now I'm the opposite. Like, I'm trying to negotiate. I'm not less prescriptive and more listening to what they want to do and how would they like to do things. And I basically, rather than being the pilot, I am more the co-pilot. So I'm on their side. They are driving their own truck and I'm on their side showing them the map and tell them, well, these are a few options here. We can go this way or we can go that way. There are these different scenarios. What would you like to do? What do you think it is going to work best for you? So it is a complete transition from being prescriptive to be more a coach, a negotiator, and connect with your client in a much more deeper level rather than just do a basic quick nutrition assessment without asking the questions that are relevant to you as a coach. Is that, how's your relationship with food? Like, going deeper into what has worked for you in the past, what hasn't worked for you. Because I remember doing my first nutrition assessments and that was like, okay, nutrition history. What do you eat for breakfast? What do you eat for lunch? What do you eat for dinner? Okay, your total calorie intake is approximately, based on what you provided to me, about 3,000 calories. Okay, you have that information, which is useful, but you don't have context around, okay, why did you choose these foods specifically? What is your favorite food? Why have you failed in the past with different approaches? What have you tried? So there are questions that were missing to have a better picture of what was happening. And now I sort of feel like I can have these questions pretty much brought up straight away, and I can have a much better understanding of what the client is about, what have they faced in the past, what have they tried, and how can you best navigate these different strategies to help them, and try to find the right voice and the right personality for different clients, because some clients are much more, okay, just tell me what to do and I'll do it. So then you can be a little bit more, perhaps more prescriptive, because if you are more suggestive, they start sort of freaking out because they just want to be told what to do. Other people might want to have more options, as I said. And if you're very prescriptive, they sort of feel like you're not giving them options, or like you are like this extreme coach that they just want to be telling people what to do. So I guess you use different hats, and you try to, with experience, you try to find what is the right way to approach each client. And that's why having the right conversations initially, exploring these different questions and trying to know the person, not just their diet, but how they think and how they behave, what are the things that they struggle the most with, and what are the successes, what are the preferences, everything. The more you know, the better you can decide what is the best approach for each client. So it's been a long transformation, and definitely utilizing more like motivational interviewing skills and asking them questions and motivating them as we go, and like being more reflective rather than just try to find out an answer or just get something from the client. You try to dig deeper, and you try to, well, and what do you think you did that? So it's more like that sort of back and forth, getting much more depth in reflections and answers from your client that makes them say out loud, oh, I actually, now that I'm saying this out loud, I feel dumb saying it. And like, you hear these affirmations from them just because you're utilizing different skills that perhaps you didn't use before. And that's why, as I evolve as a coach, as a dietitian, I guess these things come more natural, and only with experience. Like, it is something that you don't learn from just reading a book. It is practicing and just vivid experiences all the time with different personalities and different clients.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious, having evolved from more of like a prescriptive approach to using more negotiating, like you said, do you see, I don't know if this is something that you necessarily even follow. I'm not sure a lot of coaches and trainers and everybody do, but do you see more long-term success now with people? Do people reach out years down the road and say, hey, you know, this is something that I was able to carry out long-term because of the tools and the experience I had with you? Versus if you're just telling them what to do, when that relationship ends, they don't have any guidance. They didn't necessarily learn anything. Do you see long-term success more often with this approach?
Absolutely. I think it is so different and such a powerful approach. I do follow-ups with clients that are not longer working with me. They graduated from my coaching like a year ago or so, and they are in such a much better place mentally. One of my main goals as a coach is not just seeing them lose weight or achieving just one goal, but for me, a big goal is like that holistic approach. I want you to learn skills as we go. I want you to learn mindfulness, be more reflective, be more compassionate towards yourself, learning lots of different skills that are going to not just last you while we are working together, but I want you to all these skill set to be applied for the rest of your life. So that is one of my main goals when I'm working with a client, is try to teach them things that they can learn, practice in a safe environment when we're working together, because I can give them feedback. I can sort of provide ongoing reassurance, affirmation, or just say, well, there are some areas for improvement here. And as we sort of create that relationship and feedback, when they are off the rails on their own, they know what to do, or at least they are much better prepared, because it was a period where they have that extra feedback. And now pretty much I give them that sort of response in terms of, like, if I know they're not ready in, let's say, 12-week period of time when we're working together, I will tell them openly, I don't think you're ready yet. I would suggest to continue working for perhaps another period of time, so we can continue to develop these skills and you're much better prepared. I don't want you to see you going backwards if you don't have this skill set very ingrained in you yet. So sometimes the way you see it is that your clients need less from you, and you're seeing that they are more independent, things are much more consistent, they're getting things in a much easier way, they're asking less questions. So when you see that, then it's like, I think this client is ready to go on their own. So I will be very open to say, to tell to a client, you're not ready yet. At least in my professional opinion, I don't think you should be letting this coaching go just yet. And it's not about because I will make more money because I keep you for 12 more weeks. I don't really care. It is more about really making sure whatever they did, it is going to stay with them for the rest of their lives, and really finding actual long-term success. Because again, there are certain things that you only learn the more you practice and the more feedback you get. And I guess one of the most powerful things about coaching, if the coach is actually a good coach, is that feedback that you get, and that sort of explanation of whys and things. Why are you saying this, and why are you making this decision? Why are you putting someone in a higher protein diet versus a lower protein diet? But if you're explaining the whys and the reasons why you're saying and taking this approach, the client learns and they internalize the whys and the reasons why things are certain decisions are important. So that feedback is very powerful. And I think if that is part of the coaching, that gives them much more awareness, and yeah, that sets them up for success for sure.
So your goal is to have your client need you less and less over time. And I think that's the exact opposite of what a lot of people, not to say a lot of people, the people that are just really in it for the money, whether they're a nutrition coach, personal trainer, across this health and fitness space, if they want you, if they're exploiting you for money, they're probably going to keep you on the chain for a long time, and they're not going to teach you things. They want to keep you beholden to them in order to continue making progress. Because I mean, weight loss is one thing. Like you were talking about the short term. The weight loss is great. The success, it's great to see that in people, and it's probably necessary that it is necessary for them to have those short-term successes in order for them to then have long-term success. They need to be building that self-efficacy. But I mean, those deeper changes is absolutely what's going to make long-term success. So I'm not surprised at all, based on what you pay attention to, what you focus on, that you have people having long-term success and then reaching back out to you and letting you know, and you're following up with them. All right, that was fantastic. So one more before we go. I wanted to ask you, how do you feel that the dietitian industry can improve overall?
I guess it's coming back to the same answer I gave you with my evolution as a dietitian. Like, you don't learn very much about all these deeper thoughts, psychology, that I don't know, I guess it's more like how do you know a little bit more about the clients, that relationship with food, that mindset aspect. I think it is lacking in the dietetics, especially. I wish I had learned much more about motivational interviewing and much more practice, because you see a lot of theory, but you don't see that much practice. So hands-on on actual interaction with potential clients, even if it's like I don't know, like you get some actors and then you have like practice. I did that a little bit in my master's degree. We had like actual actors that were paid to come and be in a hospital setting as their patient, and they would act. They had a specific issue, and you would treat them and ask questions to dig deeper into what was happening and come up with the answer and the solution and the treatment and the action plan, and educate them with your action plan. So there was much more reinforcement on that area the more I dug deep into my master's degree. But I am sure that not all master's degree will add that extra component of extra practice. So I think it is because that particular master was very expensive, and the university is a very good university, but I don't think that's a common theme in most degrees or most universities. And I guess the other part that we don't talk much about is everything else that comes into play, trying to translate evidence. Like, no one teaches you social media. No one teaches you graphic design. No one teaches you how to translate a paper to lame terms.
Yeah.
How do you translate that? Like, no one teaches you how to do those things, or like how to do business or marketing the right way. Like, you don't learn any of that, like business and learning and how to do things on your own to build your own business. No one teaches you that. So it is like a whole new world that you have to explore on top of what you have to learn as the basic skills as a health practitioner. You have to learn that on top of it. So I wish there was an extra component for that, like creating your own business, how to market yourself, how to deal and with money. Like, how do you, I hate talking to money to my clients. Like, oh, you have to pay. Is this, oh, I feel like I'm so uncomfortable. And it is something that has to come a bit more natural, because you're helping them, you're providing a service, but there is like that sort of emotional or something just gets uncomfortable. So I don't know. It is just so many things I wish I had or learned when I started. But I guess it is all a process, and it is everything comes in the right time. Oh, not always, but sometimes you wish you had those things earlier on, but maybe you wouldn't have been prepared at that time to have additional load apart from like learning biochemistry, pathophysiology, and chemistry, and human nutrition, and then physiotherapy, nutrition therapy. Like, you learn so many things and so much things in depth that I don't think you would have had time to do the other stuff, or the maturity to know how to do that better. And I guess it's also that things, as we go, things evolve and change and become much more important. Like, social media wasn't a thing that much when I started earlier my career in 2005, 2006. Like, there was not such a priority with like Instagram, like TikTok, YouTube. It was not a huge deal. It was not a thing. And now things, because they moved more towards that technology, and the social media have become much more powerful. Then now it's different, and now everyone wants to be there, and everyone is learning on their own to do better. So I guess I don't know, it's a hard question, because there's so many things that perhaps I wish I would have liked to learn before, but I don't know if I would have been ready. So yeah, it's tricky.
Yeah, at the very least, we're living in an interesting time that we're all just trying to kind of run as fast as we can just to stand still. But you are doing an excellent job of that. It is difficult to describe and relate like these kind of higher level scientific evidence to terms in which people can understand without then reducing it too much so it doesn't actually make sense anymore. It doesn't actually apply anymore. But you're doing a great job on that. And so, Astrid, I just want to say thank you for coming on, and we will continue pointing people in your direction to, if they just need some sense, talking to them about all these things. So thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. Bye.